June 15, 1944, Tokyo, 04:45 a.m. The sky above the Imperial General Headquarters is still a deep, predawn blue, heavy, humid, and silent. A warm fog clings to the wooden eaves of the Daihine complex, wrapping the low buildings in a muted haze. Inside, the corridors smell of ink, tatami mats, and the faint metallic scent of telegraph machinery warming to life. In the operations room, a dim yellow glow spills across maps of the Pacific pinned wall to wall. Red pins mark Allied advances inching closer to Japan's inner defensive perimeter. The air is still, until a single officer bursts in, bowing rapidly, breath tight. A coded message from Saipan. The room stiffens. General Yashijiro Umezu, chief of the Army General Staff, stands at the center table. His uniform is perfectly pressed, but dark rings beneath his eyes betray months of unbroken strain. He takes the paper with both hands, unfolding it slowly, methodically, yet his fingers tremble. The message is short. Unidentified aircraft at extreme altitude, speed unprecedented, unable to intercept. No type, no precise number, just a description of something that should not be possible. Umezu's jaw locks. A silent calculation begins behind his eyes. Across the room, Admiral Somu Toyoda, chief of the Navy General Staff, steps forward. His voice is gravel low. Could it be the Superfortress, the American giant? The question hangs in the air like a storm cloud. For 2 years, Tokyo has heard rumors, an experimental American bomber capable of flying higher, faster, and farther than anything Japan can reach. A machine so large that early reports in intelligence circles described it as the size of a small destroyer. Most dismissed it as exaggeration. Now, no one in the room is dismissing anything. A telegraph operator interrupts, another incoming update from the Marianas. More sightings, high-altitude contrails, long shadows passing over the ocean. The tension sharpens. If true, this moment marks the beginning of something the Japanese high command has feared above all else. Direct vulnerability of the home islands. Umezu exhales slowly. Behind him, an aide places a folder on the table, the latest intelligence brief on the American B-29 program. Until this morning, it was theoretical. Today, it is real. He asks only one question. How soon until they reach Tokyo? The room falls silent. They do not know it yet, but this single morning will change the course of Japan's war and its fate. Oh, understand the shock inside Tokyo's high command on that June morning. We must step back, 2 years earlier, across an ocean, into the American industrial machine preparing for a new kind of war. By 1942, the United States already understands a painful truth. Defeating Japan will require reaching deep into the home islands. Carrier strikes alone cannot do it. Submarines bleed Japan slowly, not decisively. And the Philippines, Burma, and New Guinea are all consuming men and material at a brutal pace. Washington needs something unprecedented. A bomber that can cross an entire ocean, reach Japan, and return without friendly bases nearby. Enter the Boeing B-29 Superfortress, America's most expensive weapons program of the war. Costlier than the Manhattan Project in its early years, the B-29 embodies a staggering engineering leap. Pressurized cabins, remote-controlled gun turrets, and engines capable of pushing a 60-ton aircraft across thousands of miles. But the Japanese high command does not yet know all this. In Tokyo, the Army and Navy have been fighting a quiet bureaucratic war of their own. Intelligence reports from 1943 hint at a massive American bomber. Photographs from India show unfamiliar silhouettes. Prisoner interrogations mention a flying fortress even larger than the B-17. Some reports claim a range of 3,000 miles. Others hint at 5,000. Most Japanese officers dismiss the higher numbers outright. Their own industry cannot produce an equivalent aircraft. Even the advanced G8 and Renzen, Japan's answer to the B-29, is trapped in prototype limbo. They assume America faces similar limits. Meanwhile, the strategic map of the Pacific is tightening like a noose. By early 1944, the U.S. launches operations to seize the Marianas, Saipan, Tinian, and Guam. Japanese planners understand the stakes. If the Marianas fall, Japan lies within striking distance of a new, long-range American bomber, if such a bomber truly exists. Inside Japan, the debate becomes increasingly heated. Some senior officers warn that the Americans are close to deploying a weapon Japan cannot counter. Others argue that even if the B-29 appears, it will be few in number, too few to threaten the nation's industrial heart. The Army's Aviation Bureau files multiple assessments insisting the U.S. cannot mass-produce such a complex aircraft in wartime conditions. They are wrong. On the American side, factories are already producing hundreds. And on Saipan, a new airfield is being carved from coral to house them. In June 1944, as the Marianas battle rages, the Japanese High Command awaits news with growing unease. They do not know when the B-29 will arrive. Only that when it does, everything will change. June 15, 1944, 06:10 a.m. The operations room in Tokyo has grown louder, telephones ringing, boots striking the floor, aides moving briskly between desks. Outside, the sun rises behind a veil of humid haze, casting long, strange shadows through the room's paper windows. General Umezu stands rigid, hands clasped behind his back as another report arrives, this time from an officer on Guam. Four-engined aircraft at altitude beyond current interceptor capability, presumed American. The words confirm what he has feared. He turns to Admiral Toyota. Toyota speaks first, quietly but firmly. If these are B-29s, our outer ring is broken. It is not a documented direct quote, but several post-war testimonies describe Toyota expressing the same sentiment that morning, an acknowledgement that Japan's defensive strategy has entered a new, perilous phase. Across the table, Lieutenant General Torishiro Kawabe, Deputy Chief of Staff, studies the map. His voice carries a tone of disbelief. How did they reach such altitude? Our fighters can barely climb to interception speed. His frustration is not anger. It is the dawning realization of a technological gap impossible to close quickly. Another officer briefs the room. The aircraft flew so high that Japanese anti-aircraft guns could not track them. Not a single hit achieved, not even a scratch. Umezu exhales slowly. According to later recollections from staff officers, he says something close to, "If they can reach the Marianas, they can reach Tokyo. Prepare for that reality." The statement lands with the weight of a verdict. The Navy's representatives attempt to find an angle of hope. Rear Admiral Sakichi Takagi suggests that perhaps these flights were reconnaissance, not bombing runs, that the Americans might still be months away from full-scale operations. His voice wavers slightly, betraying doubt. Toyota responds curtly. Reconnaissance today means bombing tomorrow. It is a strategic truth every officer in the room understands. A courier arrives with a sealed folder, the latest intelligence estimate on B-29 production numbers. Inside are aerial photographs from China showing rows of massive bombers assembled on airfields near Chengdu. Dozens of shadows shaped like wings and promise. Kawabe's eyes tighten. If they fly from China and the Marianas, we face strikes from two directions. Silence follows, heavy, absolute. For the first time, Japan's high command fully grasps the magnitude of the threat. The Americans have brought a new weapon into the Pacific. A weapon designed not just to win battles, but to reach the heart of an empire. June 15–18, 1944. The hours following Japan's first confirmed sightings of the B-29 send tremors through every level of the imperial war machine. By midday of the 15th, the Army General Staff issues an emergency memorandum to commanders in Kyushu, Honshu, and the Home Islands air defense districts. The message is blunt. Prepare for high-altitude enemy aircraft beyond current interception capability. This is not a public announcement. It is a private admission of vulnerability. At 1320, Umezu orders an immediate reassessment of Japan's anti-aircraft network. Engineers begin calculating firing angles against an aircraft that can operate above 30,000 feet, altitudes Japanese gunners have never trained for. The mathematics are unforgiving. Meanwhile, in the Naval General Staff offices, Admiral Toyoda meets with senior officers responsible for intelligence. He demands updated estimates on B-29 range, payload, and production speed. Files are pulled from iron cabinets, maps unrolled across tables. Witnesses later recall Toyoda tapping the map of the Marianas repeatedly, his finger resting on Tinian, still under Japanese control at that moment in June, but not for much longer. Once they build their bases here, he reportedly warns, our industries and our cities will be within reach at will. By the evening of the 16th, news of the B-29 sightings has reached Emperor Hirohito through the Imperial Household Ministry. While records of the conversation remain sparse, diaries from court officials describe the atmosphere as one of grave concern and quiet disappointment. For months, the emperor has been briefed that Japan can still repel the American advance. Now the tone shifts. He is told that a new American bomber may be capable of striking Tokyo itself. Across the Pacific Front, the ripple effect continues. In China, Japanese commanders near Hankou report B-29 overflights from the Chengdu bases. Though the raids are small and largely symbolic at this stage, they confirm the worst fear inside Tokyo. The Americans can now attack from both the west and the east. Within 2 days, the Imperial Army Air Service drafts an emergency proposal to accelerate the Shidenkai and Kai-100 fighter programs. But engineers warn the truth. No Japanese engine can reliably climb to B-29 altitudes. The proposals are approved anyway. Desperation has replaced strategy. On June 18th, a confidential Army memorandum states plainly, "We must anticipate the destruction of urban and industrial centers unless a countermeasure is found." No such countermeasure exists. The B-29 has arrived, and Japan's war has irrevocably changed. The arrival of the B-29 does not simply alter Japanese strategy. It reshapes the entire trajectory of the Pacific War. By late 1944, the Marianas fall. Saipan, Tinian, and Guam become massive American air bases, each one transformed into a launchpad for industrial-scale bombing campaigns. The worst fears of Umezu, Toyoda, and Kawabe materialize with breathtaking speed. On November 24, 1944, Colonel Robert Morgan leads 111 B-29s toward Tokyo in the first major raid launched from the Marianas. Japan hears the echo of engines unlike anything before, deep, resonant, metallic thunder rolling across the night. Sirens wail through Tokyo's narrow streets as civilians look skyward, searching for aircraft they can barely see. Inside the Japanese High Command, the reaction is grim, not surprised. They expected this, they knew it was coming. What they did not expect was the scale. American factories, untouched by war, continue producing B-29s at a rate Japan cannot fathom. While Japan struggles to keep a single prototype bomber airworthy, the United States rolls a new Superfortress off assembly lines every single day. Japan's air defense strategy collapses under the weight of reality. By mid-1945, Curtis LeMay takes command of XXI Bomber Command. he makes a ruthless adjustment, switching to low altitude, nighttime incendiary bombing. The results are catastrophic for Japan's wooden cities. March 9–10, 1945, Tokyo burns. Over 100,000 civilians die in a single night, the deadliest air raid in human history. Factories vanish, rail lines melt, neighborhoods become ash. In post-war interrogations, Japanese officers admit the truth openly. Once the Americans seized the Marianas and deployed the B-29, Japan lost the ability to protect its cities. The home islands became exposed, vulnerable, and strategically indefensible. The B-29 becomes not just a bomber, but a symbol of the industrial and technological gulf separating the two nations. It frames the hard truth: Japan's wartime industry, crippled by blockade, cannot match America's output or innovation. It also sets the stage for the war's final chapter. In August 1945, the same aircraft that terrified Japanese commanders in 1944 returns with a new mission, one that will usher in the nuclear age. Enola Gay. Boxcar. Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The B-29 begins Japan's strategic collapse. It ends the war itself. A single technological leap, first glimpsed in confusion over the Marianas, reshapes the fate of nations. In the end, the story of Japan's reaction to the B-29 is not simply a tale of technology, strategy, or battlefield innovation. It is a human story, one of realization, fear, resignation, and the quiet understanding that an era is ending. When Japanese high command first heard reports of the Superfortress, they saw more than a machine. They saw the shadow of a nation whose industrial strength had grown beyond reach. They saw the consequence of years spent fighting a war they were never equipped to win. And above all, they saw a glimpse of the future, a future where air power could decide the fate of entire cities in a single night. The B-29 forced Japan's leaders to confront a reality they had long avoided: that courage, discipline, and tradition could not compensate for shortages in materials, fuel, engines, and time. The Superfortress represented the widening gap between two worlds, one industrial, vast, and accelerating, the other isolated, strained, and fighting against a tide it could no longer reverse. Today, historians view that June morning in 1944 as a turning point, not because the B-29 appeared, but because of what it meant. In a war shaped by grand strategies and brutal battles, it was a moment when the leaders of an empire understood that the center could no longer hold. The sky had changed, and with it the course of history.